So the unfortunate truth is that there are a lot of consultants out there calling themselves consultants, but they're actually contractors. Now, the reason that they're stuck in that contractor trap is because they've painted themselves into a corner. They've actually focused on selling their time. They're selling by the hour, which means that they've only got so many hours to sell. So practical step number 1, stop selling. So stop selling time. So the key in moving from contractor to consultant is, do you want to know why some specialists make $200 an hour while others make $2,000 in the same amount of time? Well, it's not to do with their expertise and it's not to do with their experience. In fact, it's just one very simple shift in their positioning that can change it all. And it's the difference between why some consultants are making a hell of a lot of money and a lot of others are leaving money on the table. Today on the show, I want to talk about the contractor trap, the actual thing that is preventing good people, good specialists from actually building strong consulting businesses. Now, part of it is actually coming in and positioning themselves as a contractor, but the other side of it is actually the mindset of a contractor and the way they're actually looking at the opportunities in front of them. Welcome to Your Consulting Business Podcast. My name's Russell Pearson and this is episode number 109. And today I want to show you how you can actually change your position from contractor to consultant and the difference it can mean to your business and what are the tricks and tips that'll enable you to be increasing your hourly rate from the $200 that it might be sitting at to more like $2,000, which is something that someone's going to be very comfortable paying you when you change the way you frame the conversation. Let me paint a picture. Let's imagine that someone has contacted you to build a house. Well, the contractor is the person that they get to do the work, the person who builds the actual house. Now they'll look at the spec and they'll actually help them make choices, but at the end of the day, the contractor is the one who does the work, whereas the consultant is actually the one that is the architect, the one who, when someone says, do you want to design a house for me, they say, why would you like a house? What's the purpose of the house? How do you want it to feel? What do you want the sun to do within it? They're going to ask all those questions that are much higher in the hierarchy of ideas so that they can be far more valuable. Because it's not just about putting in windows, it's about where the windows want to be and why the windows want to be. And so that's the difference. It's a strategic conversation versus an application conversation. So the architect shapes the vision and the contractor executes the plan. Now, there are large enterprise organizations that want you to come in as a contractor because they want to treat you as an employee. Now, the difference between the two worlds is quite subtle, but let me show you on the board behind me. So when we're looking at the difference between contractors and consultants, there are 3 levels to consider. And the first one, the one that people are probably most used to, is the employee. So employee, and the employee gets paid hourly. And so they get paid by the hour and they are task driven. So they're looking at specific tasks and usually they are told how they want something delivered by the client. So they're told how. And really they are seen as an employee. Now you might even have your own business, but you're contracting to an organization. If you're setting yourself up as a contractor, and sometimes these are sham contracts, by the way, like certainly here in Australia, and I know in a number of other countries around the world, there is a thing called the sham contractor scenario, where people want you to be a contractor, even though they also want you to be an employee. So watch out for that, because it's actually positioning you for the wrong focus, because the focus for you as a consultant who is running their own business is to build the business in a way that it gives you the lifestyle you want rather than the client the lifestyle that they want. You have expertise, you have high value, which means that you are the prize never chases. But we start as employee, right? So we've got this employee level. Above that, we've got service provider. And the service provider usually delivers a specific project. So they're working at a project level. And they are often told by the client what to implement, right? And so they're looking at the project level of things. Now, a lot of specialists work at this level. And so you have the freedom on how you go about delivering, but what you are delivering is a service. Now, if we want to go higher than that, which is what I suggest, we need to get to the advisor level. And the advisor level just means that people seek our advice and our counsel. And now the concept of consultant actually comes from the etymology of the word consultant, actually comes from the Latin consigliere. Now the consigliere is different from the Godfather one, but it's the consigliere is to take counsel, right? So someone comes to you to take counsel with you and get your advice. Now the focus for the advisor or the advising consultant is on outcomes. And the outcomes are the key. And to deliver those outcomes, people can't be telling you what to do. They can't be telling you how to do it, but they can be saying why they want to do it. And then based off that why, we as the architect will help them design the vision of their future. Now, here's the key with all of these, right? So the employee makes an hourly rate and they get paid in the project. These guys get paid in the outcome. So they get paid in the hundreds, right? Hundreds of dollars for their time. With the service, they get paid in the thousands, right? And for the advisor, the very smart advisor, and the one I suggest as far as like a business model for yourself, is the select consulting model, which means that you get to select which clients you work with, what projects you work on, where you work in the world, and how you deliver what you do, which actually gives you a really good professional lifestyle, allowing you to choose and select what you want in it. But these people are getting tens of thousands of dollars per engagement. And the difference is that they're leveraging against outcomes or results, which means that people are happy to pay this large amount of money because they're focused on the specific outcome or result. So understanding the value of what you're providing is a large key to getting these large numbers. But if you're just working on an hourly rate, you're going to be paid in the hundreds. If you're working on a project level, it's in the thousands. If you want the tens of the thousands without actually having to spend a lot of time to do it, you need to position yourself as the consultant. So the unfortunate truth is that there are a lot of consultants out there calling themselves consultants, but they're actually contractors. They've actually just got a job, or potentially they've got a few different jobs. And I tend to find the people who have positioned themselves as contractors have probably about 3 or 4 clients at any one time, and that's all they can take on. Now, the reason that they're stuck in that contractor trap is because they've painted themselves into a corner. They've actually focused on selling their time. They're selling by the hour, which means that they've only got so many hours to sell. And so by moving up through the ranks from the employee to the service provider and above that to the advisor, we're actually looking at leveraging our time to get people results rather than do the work for them. So the key in moving from contractor to consultant is leveraging your activity to get results and never focus on how much time it takes to get the result. And so you've got to avoid the doing for the client. In fact, the problem with doing stuff for a client is that you're there for an engagement, a certain period of time. When you leave, the client can't do what you did, which means you've technically disabled them. So the idea is to enable the client by consulting to them, helping them and enabling them to be able to do it within themselves and within their own business, which means when you leave the engagement, the benefit of the result that you've actually brought into that organization and the capability you've enabled them to achieve remains, which means it's far higher value and it's not just there while you're engaged. So the key difference is that contractors will say, I will do that for you, where consultants will say, let's have a look at how we can do that. And so they're the key distinctions. We don't want to be doing the work for people, and there'll be people who want us to do the work for them. Learning to say no, learning to say, look, I'm not going to do that, but I could do these other things, is a big key to actually moving outside of that contractor trap. So a number of years ago, when I first understood this, I was working with a consultant who was stuck in this contractor trap. And to be fair, I found myself in this contractor trap years ago as well, where I could really only take on 4 or 5 clients before I ran out of time. Now, painting yourself into a corner that way means that you might have a full 5 days worth of work, and yes, you're getting good income, but you've got no time to focus on growing your business. You've got no time to be strategic because you're too busy doing. Now, that's not just for the client, that's for you as well. You don't have enough time to work on your business rather than just in it. Now, this client came to me with a similar sort of problem that I'd experienced in the past, and he said to me, they just want me to do this type of work. And I said, well, the trick is you need to get out of just being the specialist who can do the work, and you need to become a specialist in the consulting, which means that you need to be able to give good counsel and help people take good counsel. And so there are people who have really deep expertise and deep experience, and that's fantastic. And I think all consultants should have that deep expertise. Now, the challenge is, though, that you need to become good at consulting, not just doing the work that you know how to do. And so the journey for you is becoming a great consultant using the processes of consulting to do that. And part of that is positioning yourself as the advisor so that people are willing to take your counsel. Now, a large portion of that is actually how you acquire clients. And so going out and selling people through proposals and pitches actually positions you at best as a service provider. You want people to raise their hand and say, I would like your counsel, I would like your help and advice, so that you can position yourself in the space so that when you get the engagement, you actually can hit the ground running and people will listen to you. They're actually going to take your advice. And when you say, look, I'm not going to be doing that, but you're going to be doing that, they will nod because they understand that you are going to mentor, advise, and consult them through the process to achieve their outcome. So the moment you move from doing the work to actually guiding someone else to do the work for themselves is the moment that you'll actually step out of that contractor trap into the consulting. And you'll find that there are ways where you can spend maybe 1 hour with a client and actually get them far higher outcomes and benefits than even if you spent 20 hours doing the work for them. So learning to consult and learning to counsel and advise is a key skill of the consultant. So a magical thing happens when you change that perspective. You can actually start looking at a project and not saying like, how can I get this done? But you can actually look at what is the result that they want from this project. And we can step back and we can start asking them questions to identify, are there better ways to achieve what they want to achieve? Now, interestingly, you can get pulled back down into the contractor trap. And so we've got the employee, we've got the service provider, and we've got the advisor. The key with staying as an advisor is to be in a position of pacing and leading, which means that you need to be ahead of the client in the thinking about the future of not only this project, but the future of the result that they're looking to get. And so if you can see that the project or the activity, whatever it is we're doing to get the result is going off track, you need to be the person who speaks to it first. If you wait for the client to come to you and say it's not working, you have been degraded to, at the best, a service provider. If you find that, okay, now I'm being told what I need to do because it's not working, then you definitely a service provider. If they then start saying, I want it done this way, they have downgraded you again in their mind to an employee. So listen to the language of the prospect and the client. If they want to tell you how, you've got to move up. You go, all right, I understand you're telling me how, but let's talk about why. Let's talk about why we're looking at this in the first place. Now, the very first time this actually happened for me, I was running a marketing company and we did a lot of websites and we did a lot of graphic design and that sort of thing. And someone came to me one day with a website that they wanted to have built. And I thought to myself, why would they want a website? And so I asked them, why do you want a website? And they were dumbstruck. They were like, oh, I hadn't really even thought about that. And so we started investigating why have a website in the first place. And in doing that, I provided far higher value from them. And they did end up having a website, but it was a very different website than they thought that they needed. And so then after that point, every time anybody came with any specific project, I would say, for what purpose? What is the outcome that you're looking to achieve by doing this thing? And sometimes that meant that I would actually lose sales because of it, which was absolutely fantastic because it meant that I was not being positioned as an employee or service provider. And so those people would come back to me over time and they would ask for my advice, which means I got higher income from higher leveraged activities, which basically is talking to someone, maybe working some strategic workshops, but outside of that, my time is my own. So there's multiple ways to leverage the outcomes with a prospect. And the first one is making sure that you're actually putting much more value into the time that you're committing to that client. But there are more things outside of that, including group work and programs that you can put in place. But first, we just want to make sure that you get out of the contractor trap and are actually starting to consult. So let's go back to the board, because I want to give you 5 practical things you can do to actually make the transformation. So practical step number 1, stop selling. So stop selling time. We want to stop selling time for money. And that means that even if you are technically still quantifying your time in your own mind or in your own books behind the scenes, we don't want to put that as a unit of measure on any proposals or in the discussion with our clients. Now, they may want us to quantify how many hours we're spending on things, but that means they're trying to put us in the contractor box. If you want to stay out of that, it's not about quantifying the amount of hours involved, it's about quantifying the outcome. And so the outcome really needs to be focused on value. So what is the value for you in your consulting? Now, one of the things I like to look at is I quantify the value usually through to dollars, and you can do that no matter what type of consulting that you do. You just got to find whatever the value proposition is with the client. Then I look at, all right, is this a client that I can actually get them 10 times the amount of value of what they're spending with me in an outcome? If I can do that, that's fantastic. That means that I am valuable. Now, if I can't get 10 times, then I shouldn't be taking that job, right? Because I either need to reduce the amount of money that I want to be paid, or I should say no to those jobs. And that can be a bit of a hard one, especially if you are pressed for cash, you're actually looking to get new clients. Avoid the jobs where you can't add at least 10 times the value of what you're being paid. So number 2 is start selling counsel. Right? We want to actually sell consulting, which means selling our counsel. We are giving counsel. People are coming to get counsel with us. Now, that doesn't mean you're a counselor. You're a consultant. But as I said with the etymology, the original meaning behind the word consultant was to take counsel. And so that's what we're selling. We're selling counsel, expertise, an understanding of what's going on and a bigger picture for people so that they can actually make better decisions and make better choices. Number 3 is a big one. It's begin every engagement with strategy. So begin with strategy. So an old mentor of mine, Michael Grinder, talks about the idea of having a house with 2 rooms. And in one of those rooms, you've got strategy and the other one is implementation. If you come in through a door through the implementation room and try and get into the strategy room, you can't go there because it's a one-way door. But if you come in through the strategy room, you can actually get to the implementation. So if you did want to do implementation as well as the strategy, going through strategy first and then go into implementation. But my advice to you is, my counsel to you, is to actually do the strategy work and not move to the implementation area, because if you are implementing, you are ideally long-term disabling this organization. Now, there might be some short-term pieces of work that you might want to put in place that they're never going to have to need to do ever again, and they're going to understand how to run them. Those are fine. But if you're actually a cog in the machine of their business or their organization running successfully, and you remove yourself once you've actually engaged, once the engagement's finished, you'll find that the thing that you thought that you were fixing just falls apart. Number 4 is position as the advisor, right? So position as advisor. So part of positioning yourself as advisor is actually going to be taking the advice from the last one, number 5, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. But another key is how you actually start the engagement. So yes, with strategy, but also using expressions of interest to engage people who might want to work with you, rather than actually going and pitching to them. And so in a earlier video, I think it's like 3 videos back, I talked about how to make expression of interest offers. And that's about, I've got a thing, do you want a thing? I'm doing something, would you be interested in the details? Rather than going, I would like to speak to you to show you our services. Very different propositions. If you want to be seen as the advisor, you need to get people to raise their hand, and to get them to raise their hand to say, I would like to discuss something. So they need to raise their hand, not you knock on their door. And finally, lead with questions. So a lot of contractors will actually lead with solutions. Because they're experts in what they do, they know what the solution is, but that's fine. But that's not how you consult. to actually consult, you need to lead with questions and allow the prospect to identify the solution. And so you collaborate with them, not for the purpose of actually needing their input. I understand you're the expert. You already know how to solve the problem. But you collaborate to get their engagement so they are part of making the solution work. We're going to talk more about outcome expertise in the future. We're going to show you how to actually take your expertise and help them turn into outcome producing results for your prospects and clients. And we're going to talk about more of those things in the future. But for now, these are the practical steps that you should take. Stop selling your time, start selling counsel, begin with strategy, position yourself as the advisor, and lead with questions, right? Don't lead with solutions. So avoid the solutions. We don't want to talk about solutions. I talk about that all the time. We want to talk about symptoms and outcomes. We can almost put the causes and solutions on the back burner and never speak about these things until we're inside the engagement. And that's a large part of how you position yourself as the expert. Now remember, you've spent years, even maybe decades of time becoming an expert at what you do. You've become a real specialist because of your expertise and the experience, which means that if you want to become a great consultant, it's going to take you a little time in the practice of consulting to get good. Now, just think back. How long did it take you to at least get capable, to get pretty good at what you're doing, not even, the expert that you are today? Well, it's probably going to take you a little bit of time to get good at the consulting so that you can really start to have a business that gives you the leverage that you want, right? The select consulting business, allowing you to choose when you work with people, select your clients and actually audition them through the process and actually decide what work you want to be doing at what time of the day. You get to choose those things. And that's the reason why I work 4 days a week. It's the reasons why I select the clients that I actually work with. And I interview every single one of them before they actually join my programs. Now, if you do want to speed up the way that you can actually get better at consulting faster, then you can look at the Consulting Guild. That's a great place for you to start. There is a link in the show notes below. So consulting's not for everybody. Some people will want to remain contractors because it's safe. It actually feels very much like the employment engagement that they were originally in. Maybe they have a little bit more freedom, but it's very similar to that safe space within employment. But if you do want to be a consultant, if you want to be a great consultant, well, you have the opportunity to do just that. Instead of actually building the things for clients, you can actually become the architect of their success. My name is Russell Pearson. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Follow us for more episodes just like this. Hit the subscribe button and ring that bell so we get notified when the next episode is available. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.